everyone, and welcome back for another Lawn Fawn video. This is Mindy Egan, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to add texture to our background with a stencil. This is going to create a cute little scene in the kitchen for our mice. I'm starting with the brick stencil and a piece of white cardstock from Lawn Fawn measured at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to start by spraying the back of my stencil with pixie spray. This is a low tack adhesive to help adhere those fine lines of the stencil to my card, and it'll be easily removable. So once I spray it, I actually do it over my garbage can. I take my hand and just kind of dab off a little bit. You would like to let it sit for about a minute or so, and that makes it nice and low tack. And then I'm just placing that over my piece of cardstock. Then for my texture for my background, I am using Distress Grit Paste in Opaque. This is actually pretty creamy as far as texture in the jar itself, but it has a lot of grit to it and looks amazing as a brick background. You could also color this if you wanted to put some onto your craft sheet or craft mat and then maybe ink smush down some ink and you could color it that way, or if you have distress sprays, you could do that too. So I'm starting by scooping this out of the jar and just placing that over my stencil. I'm starting off kind of heavy, and then I will scrape off any of the excess grit paste, and I'll put that back into my jar, just making sure it's nice and smooth. But if it's not smooth, I think that just gives it more of a realistic brick character to it. Then I'm going to carefully peel that stencil up, and I'm going to set this off on the side to dry. While that's drying, I'm going to work on coloring up my images for my scene. I'm using these mice. These are from A Creature Was Stirring and Crazy Antics. I stamped them onto the white cardstock from Lawn Fawn in their jet black ink, which is Copic friendly. And then I'm using a variety of warm grays to color in my image. I will have the colors listed across the top of the screen as usual. So I used W6, W4, W2, W1, and W0. And I did kind of fluctuate between them. I was trying to find just a nice combination for the warm grays. I tend to go really dark, and my mice always end up looking really dark. So I was trying to have a significant shadow area, but yet still keep the mice pretty light colored. As far as the shadows and where they go, I usually look at what direction the image is facing. So if it's facing to the right, I'm going to put the shadow area on the left-hand side and blend it out with my colors so that it's a really nice soft color. Same thing for this one. If this image is facing to the left, then I'm going to put my darkest area to the right. Now, normally I will start with my darkest color first and blend it out. The more colors I add on top of that dark color, the more it's going to soften it because we have more of the blending solution inside those lighter colors like a W0 and a W1. So it's going to take away some of that dark color that I had placed down. And then if you feel that you took too much of that shadow color away, you can always come back in and add just a little bit of the darkest color back to the image. Now I'm coloring in ears and the belly. I have R22 and R20 for the ears and R01 and R02 for the bellies. And I thought that was just a really cute, colorful combination. I'll be coloring the little apron and the oven mitts in my favorite red combination, which is RV29, RV14, and RV13. So adding a little bit of that shadow area and then blending out just a smidge. I'll be using this color combination quite often throughout the video too because I'm keeping my card pretty red and white for the most part. And then adding just bits of E13 and I think it was E11 for the gingerbread. Now see, this is where I repeated that red combination. We actually have a red mixer. So that's kind of where the inspiration for my card came from with the colors that I chose, is because we have a red mixer in our kitchen. So I used that same color combination as before. I did some cool grays for our mixing bowl, and I did color in the berries with the RV29 and I think it was RV13. It's really small, so you don't need a lot of colors there. And then G17 and YG06 for the leaves of the holly. Now I did speed the video up quite a bit just because there is a lot of coloring to this, but I thought you'd still enjoy seeing it colored in. The sprinkles in the shaker jars, I love that. I actually got that idea off of a video Kelly had done a while back. So I used 2 different colors of greens and 2 different colors of reds for the little bits in the salt and pepper shaker jars. And for my oven, I did cool grays. I'm not going to go into this real heavy as far as coloring it in as shadow areas, because a lot of that top part is going to get covered up by me decorating it with the cakes and the mice and things like that. So I didn't get real crazy about that. Then after I finished coloring that stove, I'll move on to my cake. And I used E37, E35, and E33. I'm going to leave the top of it white and just adding in some color for my cookies and my butter bar. Once I have everything colored in, I'm just taking the coordinating dies, lining them up over the image and holding them in place with some low tack tape. I wanted to show you quick the stove here, or the oven. So there is a piece, I call this the base piece, that you could use to die cut out the entire thing, or there's this one that makes it interactive. So I will be cutting my stove out with that interactive piece where the door opens up, but I'm also going to cut a base piece, the first one I showed you, out of some fog cardstock, and that's going to be so I can layer these on top. Now I have just some little sprigs here from the fireplace shadow box, and I die cut it out of shimmer cardstock. And this is a close-up look of the background we did with the grit paste. Just check out that texture. It looks so cool, so perfect for a brick background. So off screen, I cut a lot of my pieces up. I trimmed down that textured panel. I'm going to be layering everything on top of a piece of white cardstock that measures 4 by 5 1/4. And this is just so I can work off of this. And if anything overhangs, I can trim that off. I will be adding this to a piece of cardstock later. I'm starting with this bottom piece. This is out of woodgrain cardstock. That's going to be the floor of my kitchen. Then I have another piece of white cardstock. This is going to be kind of my cupboards. So I'll just line that up right against my floor. I have a little piece of trim here, and this is cut out of storm cloud cardstock. I was going to put that on first, but it was kind of hard to see with the white on white. So I'm putting on my textured background first. And since I had trimmed this down, I have leftover that I can use for another card. Once I have my brick background on, then I can come in and put that countertop in. So that's our basis for the card. Now I do speed this up. A lot of this is just going to be gluing and creating my scene. I switch a lot between the liquid glue and a tape runner. For the smaller images, I like to use the liquid glue, and the larger images, I'll do the tape runner. I really loved how I could put this pan of cookies inside of that oven. I didn't really mean for the recipient to be able to open it or worrying about opening it. I just thought it was a really cool look. And that's going to be what I need to base my scene off of, is that large image. So I'm just kind of placing it there. And I'm going to be adding some of these images with Distress Collage Medium. That is meant for a lot of these real textured backgrounds, and it's going to hold on really well. Lawnfawn liquid glue is amazing, but this is really textured, so I wanted to make sure that all of my images were going to stay glued down. So anything that is going to be attached to that brick wall, I'm going to be using that Distress Collage Medium, and that's kind of a liquid glue of sorts. So you can see I have some images, like the butter is going to be hanging off. I'll be able to trim that down later on. And then just building up the scene. So adding my cake to the top. I have a cute little mouse that's adding that holly on top as a decoration. Anything that's going to be on the very top of everything is going to have foam squares. So my mouse there is going to have it. My little shaker jar that one of the mice is going to hold is going to have some foam squares. So everyone's helping in doing the holiday baking. Then I have the mice down at the bottom. I didn't add foam squares because I wasn't sure if my sentiment was going to be on top or if I was going to be able to kind of squeeze that in towards the bottom. And then here are those little sprigs that I die cut from the green shimmer cardstock. Like I said, this was from the fireplace shadow box add-on. I thought that looked really cool in the background, kind of decorating the kitchen scene. So I'm using that Distress Collage Medium to add that, and I'm making sure to kind of hold that for a few seconds. Make sure it's really stuck down, and then adding in the holly in those loops where the loops meet. When I had die cut my oven, it had this little white rectangle and I wanted to put that down to make it look like a cupboard. So I'm carefully prying up my little mouse ear there and tucking this cupboard underneath. And later on off screen, I do add a little handle to it. I had forgotten to do that in the video. Now that everything is adhered, I can trim off any of that excess. And now I can work on my sentiment. So I'm using a piece of chili pepper cardstock. I loaded this into my MISTI tool, prepping that with an anti-static powder tool, and then adding this sentiment from A Creature Was Stirring. I'm going to stamp that in the lawnfawn clear ink, and then I will sprinkle on white embossing powder, tapping off any of that excess. And once my heat tool is nice and hot, I'm going to come over it and I go back and forth moving up the sentiment to really melt that embossing powder. Then I'm going to take the skinniest out of the Everyday Sentiments banner die, line that up, hold that in with my low-tack adhesive or my low-tack tape, and then run this through my die cut machine to cut out this small skinny sentiment strip. I added foam squares to the back of that, and I'll place that right under my oven there, kind of on the floor of the kitchen. So you can see I have a little bit of excess hanging off. So this is why I haven't added this to a card base yet. Now that my main portion of my card is complete, I'm going to add this to a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch pattern paper that I had from the Let It Shine paper pack. I am loving candy stripes right now in Christmas. Candy stripes and plaid are just an absolute go-to when it comes to my Christmas cards this year. So I just added that with a tape runner. And now I decided I'm going to stamp a sentiment in the inside. So this is a side folding card base out of white cardstock. And I'm adding a sentiment from A Creature Was Stirring, stamped in freshly cut grass. And then another sentiment from the Winter Wavy Sayings that I'm stamping in a lobster. And then I can add my decorated panel on top of my side folding card base. I think I forgot to mention earlier, all of the stamp sets I used for these images was Baked with Love, Sprinkled with Joy, A Creature Was Stirring, and Crazy Antics, if you were looking for all of these images that I added to the card. Now I'm taking just a white Jelly Roll pen and I'm adding little highlights around the mice. So pretty much wherever I had put the darkest color, I'm adding those little highlights. This is just kind of some fun extra detail you can add to the card. And I'm also going to bring in a little bit of sparkle to add to my holly. So I'll be using the glitter pen to do that. I kind of started off on some scratch cardstock first to make sure that it's running smoothly, and then I'm just dabbing. My white ink wasn't completely dry yet. I didn't wait. So I'm just dabbing to add that little bit of sparkle. And then that will finish off my card. So I actually decorated the inside. I added one of the extra shakers that I had, and then plus that cute sentiment. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again soon.